So good morning, everyone. So we'll go to the presentation, humidification. So just coming to the general concepts, what is humidity? It is the amount of water vapor in the gas. And what is absolute humidity? It is the amount of water vapor per gas volume at a given temperature, which is measured as milligrams per liter. And relative humidity is the actual water vapor content of the gas volume relative to the water vapor content of the same gas volume at saturation at the same temperature, and it is measured as percentage. So when we see that at a particular, like it's just the ratio between what is the water vapor that is present in the gas to the total maximum water vapor that can be held by the gas at that temperature. Okay, so if we see here, it is like here only half of the thing. Like if it is at 10 degrees centigrade, it is holding maximum water vapor. It is 100% relative humidity. If it is holding only like 50%, it is 50% relative humidity. So in this graph, when we see as the temperature increases, the ability to hold the water vapor increases. It is the actual thing is the absolute humidity. For example, if we see at 37 degrees centigrade, the maximum water vapor that the gas can hold will be around 44 milligrams per liter. It is a maximum thing. So it is 100% relative humidity. But if at that temperature, if it is only holding 22 milligrams per liter, then it is 22 by maximum, that is 44, that is 50%. So as the temperature increases, the water vapor holding capacity increases. But as the temperature comes down, there will be like condensation and water will be coming back and cooling. So when we see the relationship, basic physiology of the normal respiratory tract, we know that the ambient air will be cool and dry relatively. So it will be usually at 22 degrees and it will be holding 7 milligram per liter of water vapor, that is absolute humidity, which is only 35% of relative humidity. As it goes down below in the respiratory tract from the oropharynx, nasopharynx, trachea, near the carina actually, that is at the core body temperature at 37 degrees, maximum it can hold up to 44 milligram per liter, and it will be reaching 100% relative humidity. So this point is the body temperature pressure saturated condition. So during expiration again, there will be nasal and oral pharyngeal mucosa rewarmed, but it will be below the core temperature and water will be condensing back to the upper airway lining. So this mechanism of conditioning of the respiratory gas in the normal respiratory tract helps in warming and humidification, and proper mucociliary function will be present. So when we come to the medical grade gases like oxygen, we supply, it is only 15 degrees, very cool, and the relative humidity is only 2% and absolute humidity is 0.3. So that is the thing we have to keep in mind. That's why we need to always warm and humidify the gases whenever we are ventilating the patient. So from this, it is evident that maximum 75% of heat and moisture will be conditioning will be provided by the upper airway. So when you intubate the patients, we are bypassing the upper airway. So it is very important that we have to warm and humidify the gases when we are intubating. Even when we are using the HFNC or CPAP, even though we are using only the nasal prongs or mask, there will be continuous high flow rates provided in this condition, and there will be continuous purging if we don't adequately humidify the gases. Even in CPAP, we are giving high pressures and high flow rates, and your entire upper airway region will be flush. So humidification is very important. So whenever we go for humidification part, when we are ventilating the child, the minimum required level in non-invasive ventilation will be at least 33 milligrams of water per liter, and invasive it will be 12 milligrams of water per liter. So if we don't humidify and there is dehydration, it progressively leads to airway dysfunction and decreased cilia beat frequency, and there will be secretions inspissated, airway occlusion leading to epithelial damage, ulceration, necrotizing tracheobronchitis, and further respiratory infections and sepsis. So optimal humidity we need to maintain is at core body temperature 37 degrees, we need to have a 44 milligram per liter of absolute humidity and 100% relative humidity. This reduces the heat and water loss and risk of infection, preserves the gas exchange, improves mucociliary transport system. So it is important that whatever the mode of ventilation we give, invasive, non-invasive, HFNC, all these things, we need to make sure that humidification is proper. Especially in preterm and low birth weight babies, they do not have the efficient airway mucociliary mechanism, and we should make sure that humidification is done properly. When we come for the humidification system, there are two types, active and passive. Mostly we will be using only the active ones. This is supplied by heated pass-over humidifiers or cold bubble humidifiers. And passive is by heat and moisture exchanges. We don't use them too often. It's only for a short duration of time we use them. So what is active? That means it generates actively the heat and water vapor for the inspired gas, and they should be providing a minimum humidity level between 33 to 44 milligrams of water per liter at temperatures between 34 and 41 degrees with a relative humidity of 100%. Then it will be effective. If it is a passive system, they just conserve the heat and moisture from the exhaled gas, and that will be transferred to the inhaled gas. They do not actively generate the heat and water vapor. So they will be mostly by heat and moisture exchanges. They should at least deliver 30 milligrams of water per liter if they are being used. So this is the just schematic diagram in heated humidified passover humidification system, where the air will be passing through air and oxygen blended mixture will be going to the humidified chamber, where it is heated, humidified, and then it will be passing through an inspiratory limb which has a heated coil, because this is there to prevent the rainover, that is cooling and condensation of this humidified gas till it reaches the airway interface. But before it reaches there will be interface where the heated coil will be absent, because initially it will be 37 degrees at humidified chamber. In this heated chamber, it will be going up to 40, 41. But again, before going to the patient, there will be no heated coil. So it comes back to 37 and then it will be supplied to the patient. So this is where, so this is the thing we see where air and water oxygen blender, through that it goes to unheated coil to the heated humidified chamber, where if it is heated at 37 degrees, it can accommodate up to maximum water vapor humidity up to 44 milligrams per liter. Then it passes through a heated coiled tube, where it is increased further to 40 to 41. But at the end, near the interface, patient interface, there is no heated coil. So there again, it goes down to 37 degrees. And if you come to the CPAP, it is the same. Inspiratory limb will be having the same mechanism. Expiratory limb will be going into the bubble generator and CPAP is generated. So this is the same thing which I have explained. When we come to the heated, humidified, high flow nasal cannula therapy, this heated and humidified gas will decrease the metabolic work of breathing and reverses the dryness and mucosal injury that would otherwise occur if it is not properly humidified and heated. If the flow rates are less, 1 to 4 liters per minute, then it can generate up to relative humidity of 96% and 32 to 34 degrees. And if it is at, these will be relatively less compared to the CPAP and the bubble or ventilated CPAP mechanisms. This is one word about the cold passover or bubble through humidification. Here only the gas will be passed through the humidifier. It will be supplied to the patient after bubble humidification. There will not be any heating mechanism. And here it is used when it is like for low flow oxygen is needed, like less than 2 liters per minute. Even then we are humidifying it. And this is the heat and moisture exchanges. It is just a passive mechanism of humidification, simple and easy to use. And it doesn't require any other external water or external energy, and less risk of overhydration or hypothermia. It is just attached to the patient end after the inspiratory expiratory tube end and the patient interface. It can be of 3 types: hydrophobic, hygroscopic, and filtered. Hygroscopic would be better in humidification. They are only just an alternative, and they can be used in invasive ventilation less than 96 hours and during transport. They can deliver only limited humidity. But the disadvantage is it will increase the dead space and PaCO2 and increases the ventilatory requirement, and there will be risk of airway occlusion with clogging of secretions. So in general, we use these heated humidifiers, but HMEs are contraindicated in these conditions like frank blood and thick copious secretions. When the low tidal volume conditions are present, we don't use passive humidification. And if the body temperature is less than 32, we don't use. In non-invasive ventilation, we prefer heated and humidified mechanism, and the HMEs are not used in conjunction with heated humidifiers or nebulizers or MDIs, because it may increase the device resistance and wash of the hygroscopic coating.
Wonderful. I think she deserves a hearty applause. I think she has made humidification so simplified. Any questions from the delegates here, please?
That is the HHF. In that, usually in newborns, we'll be giving maximum of 8 liters per minute. If we are using like 1 to 4 liters, sometimes if it is like at 37 degrees centigrade, if it is not able to, like it is cooling and condensing, we may decrease the temperature to 34, because it will be achieving only 96% relative humidity. So we can keep to a minimum of 34 degrees and in that conditions.